Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, wouldn't you say that sometimes you do the right thing for the wrong reasons? I'll explain that in a minute with a personal example. You're listening to Greg Anthony's investigative journal on this April 13th, 2018 day on our calendar. So, did you ever do the right thing for the wrong reason? Let me explain. Back when I was a journalist working, I believe it was in Belleville, Illinois, I decided, I landed a job, sort of. I had to go and do an interview, and I'd already made up my mind that I was leaving America come hell or high water, no matter if I got the job or not. And the underlying reason was that Ronald Reagan became president. I did it for the wrong reason. I did leave America and go work in Italy for 7 years almost. 6.5, so I always round it out to 7. And the reason I left, I didn't like Reagan's politics. Yes, I was a liberal back then. And I had no idea what the Vatican. But guess what? After years and years of research, Ronald Reagan was the biggest traitor we ever have seen. He reinstituted Vatican relations diplomatically after they were severed by our patriot politicians way back during after the Civil War, when the Vatican, without question, was considered behind the Lincoln assassination. You don't hear a word about that now. That's why you have to be sure that the Jesuits in the Vatican are behind what's going on in the world today, including the destruction of America. So I leave America for the wrong reason, but it turned out to be right. Boy, isn't that something? And I'm sure you've done that before in the past. I just wanted to bring that up. But as we research the subject of Ronald Reagan and the Vatican and all these things, isn't it interesting that nothing ever changes? No one knows about it in America. And now we can see the New World Order in full steam. And we were talking the last couple days about the possibility and the stark possibility that World War III is on the horizon. Now, we all have heard, hopefully, what's going on in Syria, and I know the New World Order, along with Trump, they're debating, should we now bomb Syria, which may get us involved in a conflict with Russia and China and North Korea, and they haven't done it yet. But if you look at the warships, all the warships are now moving in that direction. From France, I believe, is sending a warship. We're sending 7. So everybody's getting ready for the conflict. But they're probably debating, how are we going to start this war? Should it be now? The spring's always a good time, I tell them. The ground, you don't have to worry about the snow. If you look in history, most wars have been started in the spring. So is it going to be the spring of this year or next year? Yeah, whatever it is, they're going to have their war. And all the signs of America breaking in two pieces are right there. Let me give you an example. I don't know if you guys follow the political scene in America, but I do, and I find it to be hilarious. Because when you understand the Hegelian dialectic and you understand they're playing with you, and it's all a game, it's all a show, these guys are actors on a big stage, and they're puppets of the Jesuit and Vatican New World Order and all the top guys at the top of the heap, telling these politicians what to say and do. It's been a plan going on for a long time. If you don't believe me, World War, what about Pearl Harbor? What about 9/11? All these were staged events. So you don't think they're going to stage another event? Syria supposedly is now lashing out chemical weapons on its own citizens. And who knows? Whether they're doing it or not, or whether the CIA is behind it, it doesn't matter. Americans are going to believe it. Russian people will believe America's behind it. American people will believe Russia and Assad and Iran are behind this. And if we're setting the stage for a huge conflict. So the question is, when? And I don't know. I mean, I'm not a The other day I was saying, well, yeah, it could be in 48 hours. Well, 10 years ago I said that. And, don't you get tired of it? Well, you got to be on your toes with these people because you know their plan, but, you never know exactly when they're going to, fire the first strike. But if you follow the political scene, it's very interesting. And the reason I've always said that they try to divide America, divide people. They create order out of chaos through things like, the anti-war movement, the war movement. Then we get into abortion, anti-abortion. Everything is on a scale of one group fighting the other. And in the end, you rub those two groups together and you get their synthesis, the Vatican-led New World Order synthesis they want. Nothing's different in politics today in America. Is so obvious to those who follow this that it's a game, it's a show, it's something they put on the big stage and it's all planned out. But to Americans who fall in either the liberal or the conservative camp, you're being ripped apart. Your politics show it. Now, tell me this. If you followed the Trump administration, let's just talk politics here. The Republicans now, or conservative America, white middle class, let's call it that, have the House, the Senate, and the presidency and the executive branch. But guess who's really in power? The globalists behind the scenes. The Republican authority, the high-level Republicans are all in their pocket. Nothing gets done. Let's look at the budget. They pass a budget where Trump got nothing he promised, really, when he was on the campaign trail, but he got $721 billion for the military, which, I say they need to put up a big fight after Obama, a good fight if the war breaks out, after Obama just ripped the military apart for a good reason, to weaken America both domestically and in foreign affairs. So we have Trump come on board, and you think, well, everything's going to change here. We're going to get all these good things. But really, this is a plan. And what happened as soon as Trump got in office? The liberal left, who have nothing more than a communist group now, in a sense, socialist, all they've talked about is Russian intervention in the election, and Trump should be impeached because he had Russian help. There's not been one iota of evidence that is the case. But you would know that if you listen to CNN or MSNBC. But this is a plan. Because what happens? Trump puts a guy by the name of Jeff Sessions as the Attorney General. He's nothing but a pawn. He did nothing. So he steps aside, allows a guy named Rosenstein to form a special prosecutor to look into Trump and the election, and the Russian intervention. After a year and millions of dollars spent, nothing is found, but they keep pushing, they keep doing things to incite this hatred for Trump. They just keep looking farther and farther and farther away from the special prosecutor's mission, and that is to find collusion between Trump and the Russians. Well, collusion, folks, is not a crime. There's never been a crime. Now, if you look at what just happened, they raided his personal attorney, and, this was a kind of like a Nazi raid in America. And if you know anything about they raided his house, the personal attorney, Michael Cohen's house, his business, his hotel room, and took all of this information and put it into the hands of the FBI. Now, that's totally wrong, totally crazy. There was no reason to do it. But they did. Because there is no justice in this country, and they want the American people to know it. They want the right or the conservative America to see that there's a double standard. Because if you look at what Hillary Clinton has done and how they were treated, it was the complete opposite. Probable cause for many crimes of Hillary and her associates. And they were given immunity by the FBI. And so you see this double standard. So what do I say? Guess who's in control? The globalists. Even because Trump is a globalist. The Republicans are globalists. And they're putting on this display of showing you that America, you have no rule of law left. And pretty soon, it'll get to the point where it'll be complete anarchy. Because if you see the treatment, and I'm looking at it from just a legal point of view, and let's forget about the control and the Jesuits in the background here. You cannot have this type of treatment of one person and candidate and president and allow the other, like Hillary, to get away with crimes that are so obvious that it's incredible. Now let's just look at it. They're making a big deal out of Trump's sex life before he was president. Nobody really cares. I mean, maybe he had an affair here and there. Okay. That doesn't mean he should be impeached. What about Jefferson Clinton? Look at him. He actually had sex in the White House and lied about it with an intern in the Oval Office while he was president. But you don't hear a word about that anymore, do you? So there's a double standard here. And the reason there's a double standard is because the globalists in the Vatican, Jesuit at the top, are controlling this to really show, the middle-class American, the people that have been here, worked hard their whole life, that you don't count anymore. We've got some rogues in government now that can pull the strings, and they're watching this display, and they're shaking their heads. Now, what they don't understand is that this is all a show and a game, and they're all working together. If they did, they wouldn't be so flabbergasted, in a sense, because I talk to Republicans, and they go, how can this happen? They let Hillary skate, and they're trying to get rid of Trump, and they can't find any crimes. Because, in the end, they want a globalist rule. They want to show America that this whole system doesn't work anymore. And they're going to fix it. And their solution is going to be 10 times worse for the American people, you bet. Then look at the problem of immigration. What do you think's happening in Europe? They're changing the landscape. They're changing the face of Western civilization in Europe and bringing in Sharia law. And the same thing under the table is happening here. Many liberals now are asking and saying that people without legal right to be here have more rights than people that are American citizens. And they fight tooth and nail with this idea. I mean, it's absolutely insane. But if you understand why they're doing it, then it isn't so insane. Because they're actually quite brilliant. Because they're pitting one group against the other, and it's going to end up in a big fight, and in the end, who wins? Not any of those two groups, but their new system of government, their one world order, their one world religion will be here. Don't forget, they're all intertwined, the religion and politics. And the Vatican is the kingpin all behind this stuff, the richest organization in the world. Now, that brings me to the subject of today, which is an email that I got about a show I did recently, and it was regarding Babylon the Great. And let me read this from one of my listeners. He said, "Hi, Greg. I enjoyed your show on Babylon the Great. During your show, you presented an argument that Babylon the Great is America." Yes, I did. Now, in past shows, I've showed you that Babylon the Great could be the Vatican and the mystery religions and all the Protestant churches together forming this great whore. So I want to get all sides in. Who is Babylon the Great? Okay? Many Protestants, this emailer tells me, preachers, consider it to be Catholicism, Vatican, which conveniently paints the Protestant churches in a good light. The attachments I sent you below provide an alternative view and argues that Babylon the Great is the worldwide empire of false religion. And it goes on to say, whatever the case, and I believe this is from the attachments, the Bible, Revelation 17, verse 16 and 17, states that the world's political elements, 10 horns, and the UN, the wild beast, will destroy religion, Babylon the Great. This makes perfect sense if you consider power as the ultimate pathological motivator. Babylon the Great is pictured as a prostitute riding, i.e. controlling the political elements. And this is true throughout human history. Unbeknownst to many, invisible religious forces have controlled visible politics. e.g. Hindus in India, Catholicism in Vatican and Jesuits in the West, Islam for the Middle East and North America, Buddhism, Taoism for the East. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. And I talk a lot. If you look at some of these religions, a friend of mine was making beads, and I asked her, I said, what is that? And they said it's a mudda or something. And I said, well, what is it? Well, it keeps your mind busy and you say your prayers. It reminded me of the rosary, just like the Vatican's. And we know Islam uses beads, so I just wanted to bring that up. Humans, with satanic assistance, have proved true to these words penned by Solomon in Ecclesiastes 8, verse 9, quote, "Man has dominated man to his harm." Since humans will not tolerate being overtly treated badly, the elite humans, once again with satanic assistance, devised a covert scheme whereby they can perform malevolent deeds under the cover of a benevolent-looking organization. The organization is religion. Most of the world's inhabitants direct their frustrations and anger, either mentally or physically, against the political elements, since people believe that political elements are directly responsible for their wretched lives. The political elements have tolerated this subservience to religion for many centuries. However, if you understand the psychology of power, being number two in the power structure doesn't work for very long because you have a strong desire to be number one. This is what is happening to political power. Interesting, isn't it? The plan to overturn religion goes back a long, long way. Look at the Knights Templars, okay? Rosicrucianism, Freemasonry, Ordo Templi Orientis. However, it probably first came to the fore in a substantial way with the French Revolution. It was approximately 1770s, 1780s, when the materialists began the operational phase of the multi-generational plan that they had been hatching. What if we got rid of religion so we could be number one and rule the world? It may seem like the question asked by the evil character in a kid's cartoon, but this temptation was too delicious to ignore. The materialist communist manifesto, so God could be removed from rulership and government. Okay, remember who formed communism or started it? That was with the Jesuits in the Paraguay reductions in the 1600s. Now back to the emailer who says some good words here. Then they go to work to remove God as a moral force in society. They worked out a way to fund malevolence, materialism. Globalists held that the world at ransom until they agreed to fund a global body. This didn't quite work out the first time as the League of Nations, so they imposed the strict Versailles Treaty upon Germany with a view to try another war in 1939. This time it worked, and maybe due to the specter of more political destructive weapons in 1945, real or imagined, the exhausted nations acquiesced to the global blackmail and the United Nations was born. In other words, UN, the wild beast, was League of Nations in 1920, but it is not. League disbanded, and yet it's about to ascend out of the abyss which it did in 1945. Revelation 17:8. Only then would they instruct their minions to stop the fighting. Since World War II, the globalization of the world, coupled with complete disintegration of society, has opened the way for the materialist, globalists, nihilists to take over. Probably a Sun Tzu tactic to weaken your enemy to exhaustion, and then pick him off in this weakened state. This is how I see religion today, says the emailer. They still have a strong hold on society. The prostitute is still steering the beast, but the situation is about to be completely reversed as the more powerful UN takes charge. The catalyst to this event is explained at 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 1 through 3. Whenever it is that they are saying peace and security, then sudden destruction is to be instantly upon them. Like all world events, a catalyst is normally present. An assassination in Sarajevo, a chemical gas attack in Syria. In my opinion, the world must be in a state of war so that the cry of peace and security has meaning. Freemasons, Jesuits have always wanted a third world war to finish off their plans to take over the world. Will they start World War III? Then, just like the previous world wars, will they claim that only the UN can end this petty fighting between the nations? Revelation chapter 13 states that the earth's inhabitants worship the UN. They certainly will put the UN on a pedestal if they can appear to end a global conflict, even if it has been cleverly staged by the UN itself. At this point, 1 Thessalonians states that sudden destruction is to be instantly upon them. The Bible makes it clear in Daniel 2:44 that the destruction is from Jehovah God and Jesus. This will not be a good time to be on the elite of one of the elite or anyone that supports them. Maybe you, Greg, could present this alternative view on your show one day. Well, I did present this alternative view today, and that was by a man by the name of Aaron Griffins, and I believe he's from out of the country somewhere, yes. I'm not sure quite well, where I think it's Australia. I may be wrong, but he's a member of the human race, Aaron Griffiths. Thanks for that email. Okay, so we heard from Aaron on the Babylon situation and the world situation. So we got about 4 minutes. Then, I'm going to put on a little presentation in the second half hour to end the week regarding Mystery Babylon. I don't know what it says, so don't hold me to it. But, all views are welcome on this show, including those of Buddhists, Hindus, every other religion that I can think of. And atheists are welcome as well. And the real problem is all of us are being bamboozled by the Jesuits in the Vatican and using America as the military arm, as I've said many times. And nothing is more evident than that what's going on in the world today. So keep your faith, so to speak, and keep, your head above the sand. Get out of the darkness and get out of the beast before it's too late, because you heard those last statements there. This will not be a good time for those who follow the Vatican and the globalists, says the Bible. This will not be a good time to be on their side and to be on the side of the elite. So don't be one that supports them. Start looking deeper. Start thinking more about really what's going on in your political world. Do you really believe that the Democrats and Republicans do not work together? Do you really believe Trump is an answer to the middle-class America? Come on. Do you really believe the Vatican is nothing more than a group of priests out there to help the world and save and help the poor? Come on. Do you really believe the Jesuits are nothing but great educators? Come on. If that's what you believe, then you got big, big problems. Now, I ask the question, who's considered to be on the side of the elite when this end comes? Is it going to be even those who don't know and unwillingly follow them? Without knowing, they follow because they don't know. What side will they be on? That's a good question. I'm not going to be the judge of that. So what I say is, to be sure, get out of the beast, read about it, understand it, so you're not in that gray area of following what happened without really knowing what you're following. I always said, know the hierarchy of the religion that you were born into, at least, and know the hierarchy and the government that you were born into. And I will tell you that all roads in the end will lead to Rome. And if you don't believe me, just go back to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com, and I'll get you shows going back a long, long time talking about a lot of these subjects. So do that. Get out of her before it's too late. Boy, that's some good advice. And I'm telling you, it will pay off dividends in the end. You might not see it in your wallet, but it will pay off dividends in the end. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Hi, Greg Anthony here from the Investigative Journal, and I've never steered you wrong before when it comes to talking about the truth regarding your political and social worlds you live in. And I don't plan on steering you wrong today when I say get involved in the hemp revolution, hemp for health and wealth. I know of some of the best hemp oils on the market. If you haven't tried them, you have to. And pay attention, they're lab tested. So contact me, Greg Anthony, at gregbeacon@gmail.com. That's Greg Beacon, G-R-E-G, like boy, EACON.com. And I'll hook you up with some of the best hemp products on the market. And if you want to become a sales associate and make some money selling hemp to your friends and family, do that. Contact Greg Anthony at the Investigative Journal, gregbeacon@gmail.com, gregbeacon@gmail.com.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the Supreme Jesuit Command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal, and let's continue this discussion on Mystery Babylon in the Book of Revelations. And we've heard a lot of different ideas. Is it Rome? Is it Mecca? Is it the U.S.? Well, I found a good presentation here, and I'd like to finish the week with it. So let's find out. Where is Mystery Babylon?
Who is it? What is it? And where is it? And more importantly as well, does it really matter? Does Mystery Babylon really matter? Mystery Babylon is actually mentioned in Revelation 17 and 18 and also the first 3 verses of 19. So what we're going to do is try and find out what or who or where this actual place or person or location or institution, whatever it is, try and find out what this is. Now, when you go on YouTube, on the internet, there's lots of views and opinions on there, and everybody's, as per usual, passionate about one particular camp or another, isn't it? And when you get down to it, there's 3 main ones. You could say there's a 4th one, I'll include the name, but the first 3 that I think are the major ones that you need to look at. that are strong candidates for Mystery Babylon is, some say it's New York, maybe Washington DC, and the USA, America. The second one would be, we'd be looking at Mecca, Islam and Saudi Arabia, and then the third one is Rome, Italy, the Vatican and the Roman Catholic Church. And that's in no particular order. What I'm going to do is an analysis. I've actually picked 20 Bible verses from Revelation 17, 18 and 19, which I think actually reveal to some extent who Mystery Babylon is, or what it is, or where it is. There are some definite giveaways there, but I would say that overall it's not conclusive for any particular one to stand out. But I would say when you go on the net or on YouTube, anything like that, you will see that the most popular one is the Catholic Church. I would say the Catholic Church is right up there for good reason. You know, there's a lot of the scripture that's mentioned in Revelation does gear up towards pointing the finger at that institution, I suppose, isn't it? So what we'll do is, I'm going to look at this objectively, neutral, with an unbiased mind, and I will try to come up with some answers. But to do that, we need to look at, first of all, the first 20 verses. But before I even start, I'll just give my disclaimer, which is, these are just my thoughts, my views, opinions and ideas. I could be right, I could be wrong on this, I could be spot on, and I could be way off the mark. Yeah, the fourth candidate you could say is Israel and Jerusalem. Some people say that is one of the candidates. I haven't included it. It could be, but I mean, I've decided to exclude it for various reasons. But it is one of the candidates, you could say, based on the fact that it's a city and it's based on 7 hills, and Jerusalem is roughly located on an area that has 7 hills or 7 mountains. So, but I haven't included it in this study. I may do another video, a separate one for that. But I really honestly think it's either America and Saudi Arabia, Mecca, or Italy and Rome and the Vatican. That is the 3 that are on the short list. Right, so we're entering into part 2 now, which is looking at Bible verses, and then what I've got is 3 columns on the right hand side, Rome, Mecca and US, and to see whether that Bible verse actually applies to those places. Yeah? So let's read the first one again. Revelation 17:1, and there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Whatever's in bold, that's the important bit. Now, if we apply this to Rome, Mecca, and with no prior knowledge, it is explained what many waters means, but I've put here, Rome, yes, it's like a boot that sticks out, isn't it? It's surrounded by water. It's an island that's sort of tagged onto a mainland Europe, isn't it? So, yes, you could say that. Mecca, again, is in Saudi Arabia, and that is surrounded pretty much, they call it the desert of the sea, don't they? Surrounded by the Red Sea, and it's surrounded on 3 sides, isn't it? And in the US, again, you could say the same thing again. Yep. You've got the Gulf of Mexico, the Atlantic, the Pacific. Yeah, it sits on many waters, isn't it? So all 3 of those tick the right boxes. Let's go to Revelation 17:2. with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Now this fornication is not the fornication with, the S word, sex. It is referring to spiritual fornication. And it says being made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So on this one, I have put Rome, Mecca, and the US. I've ticked them all yes again. Why? Because I would say Rome, the Catholic Church. Has spread over to all of the inhabitants of the earth. I think it's about 1 billion members, isn't it? And certainly the Holy Communion that they do, you could tie it up with that, the wine of the fornication. The Mecca, again, that has started to spread to a large number of inhabitants of the earth. There's 1.6 billion and rising Muslims, isn't it? And the US, you could say, with the false prophets and false preaching that goes on there, the TV channels and everything that goes on. I'm not saying it's all like that, but the mega churches, that is the very central area, isn't it? So that's why I ticked them all yes on that. The third one is Revelation 17:3. Now this one is quite important, and it's quite vague. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-coloured beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, I'm not going to go into the beast at the moment, because it is described later. But the bit I've highlighted here is probably the bit that doesn't stand out. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. This is St. John the Divine, isn't it? He goes in the spirit. He's still on Patmos, but he goes into the spirit into the wilderness. What is the wilderness? When you go into Strong's, which I'll show you later, it's a remote area, or normally it's called desert. Yeah. Now, when you apply that to Rome, no. Mecca, Saudi Arabia, the strong yes. And the USA, it does have deserts, yeah, but not in the New York area or Washington DC, the two main places, isn't it? You could say Los Angeles, maybe, but I'd put no on that. Yeah. Definitely, I would say the wilderness area. When you go on a biblical map, which I'll bring up later on, you will see that anything south of Edom was classed then as wilderness. Let's go to number 4, Revelation 17:4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet colour, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. With this one, Rome, definitely. The colours, purple and scarlet, is what is worn by the various grades, priests and bishops and cardinals. I think it's bishops and cardinals, isn't it? They wear those colours. And also a golden cup. That would be representative of the Eucharist or Holy Communion cup, isn't it? And precious stones and pearls, again, they tend to be adorned with that. So definitely Rome, I would say yes. With Mecca, I have said possibly. If you Google purple and scarlet, it comes up afterwards. Catholic Church. It comes up as auto suggest. Type in an I at the end, and maybe ISL, and nothing comes up at all. So it's not really associated with Islam. Neither is the golden cup. But, and I would say purple and scarlet, decked with gold, a golden cup in her hands. I've said no to the US on this. You could tie that up to the Statue of Liberty, the golden cup, but it's more of a torch, isn't it? There's a torch she has in her hand, not a golden cup. So that's my interpretation on that one. The next one is Revelation 17:5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. That's all in capital letters. And what have I ticked the boxes on here? I've said Rome. Rome back in the day was called Babylon. It was called that, wasn't it? So Mystery Babylon the Great. I've said yes on the Catholic Church and Rome. I've said also yes to Mecca, and I've also said yes to the US. Now, why have I said yes to all three? Because I think St. John the Divine, some people say that St. John the Divine referred to Mystery Babylon the Great, or Mystery Babylon. It was an encoded way of saying Rome. That's what people say in the Rome camp. That he was on the island of Patmos, and who put him there? The Romans. And if he was going to write about Rome, he couldn't write about it. He had to call it something else. Otherwise, it looked like if they started to read his book, he was probably writing some different language, which they wouldn't understand. But if they did figure out what was going on, that's why he called it Mystery Babylon. Others say it's basically Babylon is associated with idolatry, isn't it? And Mystery Babylon refers to something that St. John the Divine couldn't see at the time, or didn't exist at the time, which would tie very closely with America, and also Mecca. Islam at the time, Saudi Arabia, most of it was just wilderness. There wasn't much there. So Mecca, Medina, these places, they're fairly new. They haven't been around. Some say they've been around for a long time. But a lot of people say, like the Islam religion, it's only been around since about 600 AD. So what St. John the Divine was seeing was something that was way, way in the future, which he couldn't comprehend. And that's why I ticked off not only Rome, but also Mecca and America as well. Anyway, we go on to the next one. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, and when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Yeah. Now this one produces a completely different result. Rome, yes, you can say that. If you go back in the old days, there was the Crusades, the Middle Ages, there was a lot of persecution of Christians by the Catholic Church, and that's why the Protestant Reformation came around, didn't it? And basically, if you were a sort of a self-practicing Christian that didn't believe in, the institutional church, a lot of people were killed for it, weren't they, back in the day? So the Catholic Church is guilty of that, isn't it? So I put yes, certainly Rome, and with Mecca, I say yes. Recently we're seeing it with Islam, aren't we? Islam there's a lot of persecution of Christians, it's on the rise, and you don't hear much about it, but when you do see it, I've seen many pictures of, in a line, even if it's ISIS, these sort of extreme groups, bags over their heads, and they just shoot them, isn't it? The option is recite one verse of the Quran, and we won't shoot you. If you don't do it, then and that's the option, isn't it? And America, I would say no. I've put here because I don't think throughout American history have Christians. There may have been recently in the last 10 or so years. There may have been victimised a bit, that sort of thing. But I mean, certain Christian signs pulled down, crosses, and in God we trust, this sort of thing. But there's been no, as far as I can see, any killing or martyring of people on a massive scale in the US.
Okay, so he continues and goes through 20 to 25 Bible verses, checking yes or no on whether Mystery Babylon is Rome, Mecca, or the United States. I'll move forward a bit and see what comes next.
What I'm going to do now is go back to the Bible software, and I'm going to show you some extra verses that will open the lid and confirm even more what I think it is, what I think Mystery Babylon actually is, and it's not the popular one that's out there at the moment. Right, so what we'll do is we'll start off with the software, just go over that very quick. We're using the Xiphos software, and we're using the King James Version 1769 with Strong's numbers and excluding the morphology. The top row here is the chapters and verses under consideration. I've got a few cross-references I've thrown in there as well for later on. And then here you can see the book, chapter and verse, it comes up here as well. This is the main pane where the actual Bible verses under consideration are. And if they're highlighted in yellow on this one anyway in particular, then that's the one under consideration. These are the Strong's numbers, either Greek or Hebrew, depending on where we are. And they come up over here, and also they come up over here. These are the interpretation of those words, multiple meanings that they may have. This is the Treasury Inscription Knowledge, and it gives the cross-references, which if I click on them, they come up in more detail over here. And that's the software. What I'm doing now is just do a few more verses, and I'm not trying to disprove any particular one here, but it's just, you're going to see that certain things come up, and then you realise that the strong candidate, which is the Catholic Church, is very strong. The bride, the colours that are mentioned, the golden cup, the whole thing, isn't it? The wine of the fornication. I mean, you can use all those key words, but it's just a few Bible verses that could put a complete spanner in the works. It's very similar to, the popular theory out there with the pre-tribulation rapture, isn't it?
Okay, so he goes on using this software, trying to analytically figure out who Mystery Babylon is, using Strong and the software. So let's see what he comes up with.
And 18:9, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. And finally, for me, this is really is the most overwhelming one that I think does prove, I think, if you take this cross-references, you've got to realise that cross-references are man-made things, aren't they? But I'll read this. This is Isaiah 34, 9 and 10. Yeah, and they cross-refer to Revelation 18:18 and Revelation 19:3, and it's just so scarily similar. It's frightening. It really is quite frightening, but I shall read it. Isaiah 34:9. And the streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust thereof into brimstone, and the land thereof shall become burning pitch. It shall not be quenched, night nor day. The smoke thereof shall go up for ever. From generation to generation it shall lie waste. None shall pass through it for ever and ever. No mention of Sodom and Gomorrah here, but Sodom and Gomorrah to this day is just a desolate wasteland. Nothing grows there, completely barren of anything. And this Mystery Babylon, if this is Mystery Babylon here, which I think it is because it's cross-referring, I'll read the cross-references now. Revelation 18:18. And cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? Revelation 19:3. And again they said, Alleluia, and her smoke rose up for ever and ever, referring to Mystery Babylon and the great harlot. Yeah. And this is where I start to think that you could say, if this is Saudi Arabia, the streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust into brimstone. There was fire and brimstone of Sodom and Gomorrah, wasn't there? And the land thereof shall become burning pitch. What is pitch? It's a form of, actually we get the Strongs on it. Pitch, asphalt. Pitch is normally tar, that sort of thing. Yeah. What is tar? It's a derivative of oil, isn't it? Crude oil.
Okay, so there you have it. You can go look up Mystery of Babylon in Revelation. Is it Rome, Mecca, or U.S.? Everybody has their opinion. What is your opinion? Who is, what is, where is Mystery of Babylon? It's a good question to ponder all weekend. In the meantime, go to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com. You can get shows going back well over a decade regarding the Vatican-led New World Order. And if you go to the right side of the website, there's a donate button. If you're a free subscriber, lend a hand. Keep the show on the air. We're listener-sponsored. And donations are dwindling in this difficult time, right? Boy. We would appreciate your help. So go to my website and donate if you can. And we will see you Monday on the Investigative Journal.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.